Consumption to me comes in all sorts and forms and functions. People living on Earth consume things even though we think we are not. And this act helps us structure our life choices and existence. Consumption is more than just buying and using items, but more like how we integrate ourselves into a system of culture. For instance, buying our basic needs from supermarkets are essential, but when we see the items we want, we wouldn't hesitate to go for them, even if we don't need them to live. Consumption to me plays the role of an identity seeker and finding something I truly like. Some buy what they feel is more premium, or some might take things based on the price and will to survive. Shopping has its various types such as quartermaster, technical, expressive, and recreational. For myself, I'm more towards the technical shopper. Technical shoppers plan ahead, make decisions, and seek information on the product before making the purchase. This mentality does not come from thin air, but having this utilitarian mindset enhances the way self-concept and gives consumers this sense of satisfaction. On top of a technical shopper, an economic shopper is also slightly present in my day-to-day purchasing. Economic shoppers act in a way that they take note of the quality, price, and also its variations before investing in a product. To economic shoppers, every item has a value, and each person sees different values in each object. Based on Slater's article back in 1997, he mentions that the act of putting the importance of our wants implies that the forms and functions of our decisions can easily be determined with a utilitarian mindset, compared to a signifying concept where the signs of values can only be found based on a person's social perception. As long as there is a society that has a different meaning of the object from the obvious, there will always be an indication that society can refunctionalize the usage of certain items, whether it be for their actual functions or a lifestyle check. Whether we see the things we consume as a form of basic needs, but when we set things aside, it represents us for who we are and what kind of background we live in. So back to myself as a technical consumer, we tend to think technical shoppers tend to think and process a lot when it comes to making a purchase, and to say the least, it is true, but usually associated with expensive items. But this is not the case in my opinion. Technical shoppers also have this mentality even when it comes to things like food or buying everyday items. An example of this would be what people call serious shopping, where the shopping is distinguished between labor and leisure. According to D. Solier in 2013, some consumers find food shopping both pleasurable but at the same time as a self-maintenance activity, as those that spend longer times at establishments, mainly because of the involved planning of the research done by the consumer. Even though this presents itself in the context of food, but it can be said the same for shopping at other places as well. The ultimate satisfaction from the product is what technical shoppers like myself truly want when making a purchase. A journal article by Timothy in 2005 also mentions that the satisfaction in shopping is achieved when we know a product's properties, performance, and how others feel about the product. This is where peer reviews become the lifeline for technical shoppers. When another shopper reviews and states their thoughts on the product, technical shoppers are usually there to take note of what they say, as constant research on the product does not necessarily enhance their final decision on the purchase, but rather they seek a credible peer to recommend the product. Based on a study made by Smith and his team back in 2005, reviewers that have high credibility were able to reduce the amount of time for technical shoppers to invest themselves in their research rather than those who are exposed to less credible recommenders. With this, we can say that peer influence changes the decision and perception of technical shoppers, mainly because by looking for a review, that act itself counts as research. Even for myself, I admit that looking for credible reviews changes the way I think of products, as my purchases could take days or even months before the final decision is being made. An example of this scenario was the purchase of my headphones. Before the purchase, I had to research for weeks for the ones that fit my criteria. And by watching and reading the reviews by YouTubers and tech reviewers on the headphones, I was able to get a better idea of what is categorized as a quality and gainful product. But it is important to know that reviews done by high credibility reviewers do not necessarily change our opinions on objects, but sometimes all it takes is a vision of ourselves with the product. Only then we will have these thoughts when making the purchase. Corresponding with my role as a technical shopper, it can be said that technical shopper somewhat relates directly to another type of shopper, which is the economic shopper, which is something that I relate to as well. So in economic shopping, pricing, quality, and variations are all the main things that come to mind. Prices are the main aspects that either pushes or pulls one away from the purchasers, as when consumers sees both a good deal with the added quality of a product, economic shoppers are usually the ones that show interest. But according to William and his team in 1985, they mentioned that economic shoppers might not be at establishments just for the sake of bargains and deals, but rather their mentality of shopping to be labor than leisure. Some of the things economic shoppers see have a bargain does not necessarily be an item they need or want. For the most part, I do agree with these statements done by William and his team, but to a certain extent, items of certain interest are also what drives me away from my economic shopper self, and back to my technical ways. When an item sparks an interest in someone's perceptions, it is easy to switch between the various types of shopper you are, or fuse the two. Myself being both technical and economic, it is easier to bring forward the economic side of shopping, but it was mainly enhanced by the technical side of me. As technical shoppers are constantly researching for the best deals in items, we carry forward the mentality into economic shopping. Hence, when we know the value of the items that we see in the market, we can pinpoint if the bargain items are worth buying or not. But shoppers were not always like this, but rather the evolution of mall structures and the rise of online shopping, it further enhances this. As we see a vast amount of variety in the market, we are easily caught up in the factors of the prices, quality, and the added on research done to get the best deals. A book by Jared in 2006 mentions that the choices we make all attribute us as a human being in the forms of our motives, for our personal needs and aspirations of ourselves, but we must steer what we aspire to be like, as the things we consume control our future, which leads to some rational critical choices to optimize our goals and opportunities. Hence, seeing myself convey these elements of a shopper, I now know why consumption plays a huge role in knowing what kind of person I choose to be, as simply knowing what my perception and choices of my purchases, it can directly suggest my aspirations. As mentioned earlier, I said that consumption to me is a form of self-identity, and to be honest, I did not think of it till the early weeks of the semester. Self-identity was taught to me to be something that could be obtained via hobbies, interests, or professions, but it was never to do with consumption. I quickly realized this when I came across a book chapter from Gabriel and Lang from 1995, where they mentioned that the different types of consumers there are, and how consumerism has quickly become contemporary within the last few decades. In Gabriel and Lang's chapter, the consumer as an identity seeker was talked about, where the modernity has quickly shaped the new prospects of wanting to match another lifestyle. Social media and pure influence contribute to our choices, as to when we put full trust into what others have, we may want the life that they have. Hence, the easiest way to achieve it is by consuming the things they have. An example of my identity-seeking trait lies in my love for tech products. Social media platforms like YouTube often shows new technology, and my love for new tech directs my attention to that. Thus, immersing myself with content as such is sort of gives me an identity for my liking of tech products. According to Henzi and his team in 2012, they studied that consumers have a sense of self-identity value, as they would use items for showcasing their own identities, and by this they also apply materialistic values where they are satisfied with what they purchase. With that, we can pinpoint that consumerism is a clear-cut image of who we are as a person, not by the things we buy, but rather what values we have when perceiving items that are worth to us or not.